Hello folks, this is Steve AB4L. Got the window open. Nice cool breeze in comparison to earlier today. You may hear the traffic. Nothing in this episode is a promotion, nor is it except of myself, nor is it a recommendation. Now, just a couple of days ago, we were all shocked by an earthquake near Marrakesh in western Morocco. A lot of buildings just tumbled down. Some of those buildings are, I can tell you, 1,000 years old. But another tragedy has hit North Africa. And in the last 48 hours, there's been huge floods in northeastern Libya. Now, why would I be interested? I'll tell you in a moment. The article I read centered on the city of Derna. I've been to Derna. Here are some pictures as examples. I think you can see that the water got into the city. This is an interesting picture. We're talking about a coastal city in Libya. It's coastal because it's on the Mediterranean. Now, take a look at this picture. Let's see if I can get it bigger. There we go. I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, you can see the rushing water. That's its low point in the flood that's happened in the last 36 hours. Notice that in the foreground to the right, it's been eroded away. You can see the rocky subsoil. And you can see that there's a concrete wall here and on the other side that is meant to channel it. And the height of it is suggesting to you that they don't normally expect it to get any higher than that. What do you see in the background? You see two mountain ranges. And you can see there must be a channel through one mountain and the other. All right, I'm just looking at the picture. What else do I see? If you look to the right area here, this used to be city neighborhoods. They're gone. Yes, there's city buildings up here, but there's also buildings here that got damaged, but not nearly as damaged as the ones that were here that are no longer there. Am I mistaken in that interpretation? Here's another view of that area. We see, I want to show you why this happened. Can you see how deep the mud is? Where'd the mud come from? These buildings are in the vicinity of the Mediterranean waves. You can see that there's still residual water here, and this has all been buried in mud. And there were buildings here. You see there's one left here, but the other ones are gone. You can do more searching online, I'm sure. Now we're going to be talking about that. They call it a canyon. Wrong word. 1966, I hitchhiked across North Africa. I entered at Tangiers. I went down the Moroccan coast, not to Marrakesh. I was trying to go to Rabat, which is just north of Marrakesh, where the earthquakes were just a couple of days ago with tremendous destruction. And then I went across Algeria, down through Tunisia, and in mid-Tunisia, as a matter of fact, at that place right there that they showed, where the amphitheater, I got a ride with Colonel LeBlanc and his Land Rover sales group. And in fits and spurts, I traveled with them from here across Libya to Alexandria, Egypt. But we're interested in Libya, and we're interested in particular in Derna. There's Tobruk. We stayed overnight in Tobruk. The colonel put me up at the hotel. He was starting to like me. Now, this northeastern Libyan floods, they're covering the name of the city. That's where Derna is. You see the city is starting to emerge. Can you see it there? Now, on that particular day, we left Benghazi, which is here, and we traveled up along the coast, and before turning onto this inland road, Colonel LeBlanc took us to the actual shore there, and he explained to us that that particular place had been important during the early part of the Second World War after the Second Battle of Alamein, in which the British and Commonwealth Fifth Army began pushing Rommel's Panzer Army back out of Egypt, back across Libya, up and through Tunisia, and forced them to go back to Italy. And he said, now it's something you can see about the cities along the coastline. There aren't a lot. And what he explained to us is there are very few places along the Libyan coast where you can actually bring ships in close enough to unload them. And that was a critical point, and that's why we were stopped along the coast for him to show us one of those unloading points where they would unload gasoline, ammunition, and replacement parts and trucks and whatever to replace the ones that had been spent in the fight to push the Panzer Army back. So there are a series of places that are showing that they had destruction from this flood. This map explains the onset. This is the Guardian. A terrible storm, Daniel, struck parts of Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey last week. Think of hurricane. It left Greece. Now this story is about Libya. So on the 5th of September, the storm has moved across Greece and is now moving across the Mediterranean. And then it swerves and here's Benghazi, there's Derna, there's Tobruk, and it swerves and follows this path inland into Egypt and then back out to sea north of Alexandria. 5th is when the map starts, and 7 days later. So it wasn't a fast-moving storm. And think about our East Coast hurricanes, the ones that really drop a lot of rain, which is what happened to northeastern Libya. An incredible amount of rain. But we all thought that Libya was a desert country. let me go back to this. When we were crossing Libya, which is like 1,000 miles, what I want to tell you is that in Roman times, 2,000 years ago, the western half of Libya and Tunisia were the breadbasket of Rome. That means that's where they grew wheat and other things. And there were 100 banking houses in Tunis, Tunisia, to handle the contracts for all of the stuff that would end up going on ships to feed the Roman Empire in Europe. But that's desert, but not 2,000 years ago. And the soil type all along here is such that when there were other invading armies that destroyed Rome's grip and the farming economy went away, the soils were of a type that they went from being rich, arable, agricultural lands for thousands of years to concrete, cement. No, I'm not exaggerating. Here's Sirte. We stopped east of Sirte, going between Tripoli and Benghazi, and I slept on the hard ground, like concrete, like on a sidewalk. As we went across Libya, we could see places where during that early World War II battle between the Eighth Army and the Germans, the Nazis, places where it slowed down and they built fences, fortifications, and were facing each other. And you could see this is 1966, you could still see the trenches. And it was obvious that the trenches hadn't been dug. They had been blasted. You can't dig there. You have to blast it, which is different than 2,000 years ago. Now, this fits in with me explaining the floods in Derna. Northern coast of Libya is essentially concrete, limestone and concrete, limestone and concreted soil. Now let's look at Derna, keeping that in mind. As we approached Derna on this road, you can see that we're going through, I'll tell you, limestone foothills. And the reason why I remember it, especially coming up to this road junction, passing through this particular pass, which is just west of the modern Derna, in the limestone exposed hillsides, we're down in the gully going along, you could see that people had carved houses out of the limestone face. Think of the pueblos in our southwest. Only they carved into the limestone face of the mountain from Roman times. That's where a lot of people lived. That's how they made their house. Don't talk about building houses out of wood. You do it either from stone or you dig into the stone, chisel into the stone. I'm talking about what I saw on that road leading into the outskirts of Derna. I remember it vividly. It really impressed me. So what's that got to do with the floods? Do you remember the pictures I showed you? There's the Mediterranean. And we saw the Mediterranean right here. And we saw people standing in this area, remember that picture? And I said a whole bunch of buildings got wiped out. And I'm circling around what got wiped out. What's this? Well, the name on it is Wadi Darna or Wadi Darna, depending on your transliteration. What's a wadi? Grand Canyons. How did the Grand Canyons get formed? How does a pass like this get formed? There's the water. What can be eroded by millions of years of high floods, the weaker soil gets washed away down to the bedrock, which can be things like limestone. Got it? So that it looks something like this. And that's what you would see south of Derna. Let's back up a bit. This is the city of Derna, satellite view before yesterday. We can see that Wadi Darna bisects the city. Here's the city. On both sides, there's the dotted line around it. And here's the wadi right there. And we can see that that used to be an oasis. How can you tell? Because there's vegetation there. How much vegetation can you see in this satellite view of the city? You see a few trees here and there, but the rest of this is natural vegetation along something that has a trickle of water year-round. You can see the basic lake stream bed here. That's the very bottom. It's like going down to the deep river here. I'm 40 or 50 feet above. The deep river running through this area has eroded down to the bedrock and can't go any further down. And over millions of years, the floods, periodic floods, wash away. If you remember the videos of Franklinville, when you look at the town, it's a bowl going up to Main Street. But when you look at Faith Rock Trail, it's an abrupt this because this is solid rock, but that was alluvial deposits and got washed away. And I'm describing what's happening here. And you can see a shadow along here. So that means if you stood here, you'd probably have to jump down 50 feet at least. And this bottom thing is where the water is normally flowing year-round, no rains. When I was in North Africa, in Libya, there was no, which is, I don't know, April, some rain. The trees are there because there's a water table just under the wadi. But the water table is not under the adjacent part of the city. There aren't that many trees. So let's follow the wadi. This is the oldest part of the city here. Oh, there's a dam right there. The dam is gone. The dam is gone. The dam is gone. What happened? That's what I'm explaining. And you see this circular thing right here? That's the picture now. So you look at this, and then you look at the satellite view, and here's the dam wall, there's the road across it, and it's gone. How did it go? Why did it go? That's what I'm going to explain now. And all of the stuff I said is preparatory so that you'd understand it. Can you see a road like this? It's going around the face of something that's a hill like this. can you see the contour lines? And you notice that down in the wadi, and the road follows the wadi down at the bottom. Can you see the contours here? What do those contours mean? What did I say about the deep river being eroded out over millions of years? That's the pattern here. It gets eroded out down to bedrock, and what's surrounding, what kind of mountains did I say there were in the vicinity of Derna that I was able to tell because I could see that in the limestone, which is calcium carbonate, solidified calcium carbonate, not quite the step before it becomes compressed to marble. You can chisel into it and make a home in the side of this and maybe chisel a path up to it. That's what I saw. That's why I know what this is. So let's go back a little further. We saw the dam there. There's a mosque here, and this says Bir, and Bir usually means someplace that has a well. And what it is that this is a place where there's probably water coming out of the face of this, just like it was in northern Israel and western Galilee where I was, that there was always springs up there coming out of, see, there's an abrupt 800-foot break in the land millions of years ago, and the natural border between Israel and Lebanon was an 800-foot almost straight up thing, and the Romans built an aqueduct from there down to one of the coastal cities so they could have a lot of water year-round because the springs coming out of that mountain face was continuous, but the rains are only from November to beginning of April. None after that. So the road is following the wadi, and you notice there's all these side channels. And let's see how long, oh, look at, there's more branching of the wadi. But here's the main wadi. Look at how far it goes. And it's got all these tentacles off to the side. And there it is. And, oh, I'll bet you there's another dam here. Oh no, somebody is able to grow stuff in the wadi. There must be a dam. Oh, there's a dam nearby. So now we know where there's two dams. Were two dams. No more. The article said multiple dams burst. And let's look behind it. Now this is obviously at a time when there isn't a lot of water behind the dam. There's the dam. There's the dam, the water, right? It's got that conical thing there too. Do you see any water there? All there is the trickle stream, and there's probably water running under the surface at the bottom of the wadi on top of the bedrock that's just under it. But take a look at all this stuff that you can see that it's like this all the way along. Now, why do I keep emphasizing that? There's some water in there. There's some water in there. This must be a low point. They may not have had any rain in a while. How far am I from the city? Look at how it keeps going. And it goes up this way. And it goes up, and there it branches this way, it branches that way. And look at all these little ones. And why am I doing this? Because the storm came in over the shore northeast of Benghazi and went across here inland, and it was a torrent of rain. And this is all solid, eroded out limestone, and we can see how many channels are having the rain wash down into their things and they're all running downstream. Look at how many there are. They all got heavy rain. And it all ended up in Wadi Darna. How did they say the Egyptian pharaoh chasing the Israelites? What happened? Do you remember that story? What happened to Pharaoh's army? There was a sudden wall of water. That's what we're talking about, folks. Same thing in Sinai. What I'm telling you is that a storm comes through. It's unusual. It rains like hell over this entire dry, and the soil it doesn't sink in. It runs off, and it's been running off and channeling and eroding for millions of years. And now they had a 1 in 100, a 1 in 200 tropical storm to come right across them. And that wadi is full to the top. That's why it wiped out the dams. And that's why it wiped out a portion of the city. Just like the Pharaoh's army went under the wall of water. I probably explained something that happened in the Bible, didn't I? It's the same thing. I've been there. My hearts go out to the people who lost their lives and the disruption. According to the news, Libya floods. 10,000 people are missing and thousands are known dead. BBC, into Libya floods, entire neighborhoods dragged into the sea. That's the headline. I just explained how it happened. I've been there. It kind of rings true. Steve AB4 sorry for what's happened to those folks. Saying see you in 73.